looks like we're live on YouTube now. So, all right. So what I wanted to cover today, I think what the most valuable thing will be for us to cover today will be growth. So the uh the big question is, and I think a lot of people, this is sort of what we struggle with in our jobs, is that obviously we're hiring based on growth. We want people to grow. That's the whole point. Whenever I'm talking to, like the other day when we had those visitors here and whatnot, and every time I'm talking to somebody else from the company, the biggest difference I think is that other companies aren't allowed to do that. So, for example, in one of the companies I just visited, they are not allowed to bring people over into the sales department. They're not allowed to bring people over into management without a lot of prerequisites, and experience. And some companies, even in renewable energy, don't even allow people to move up in the company if they don't have certain degrees and things like that. And obviously, we don't do that because, quite frankly, it doesn't make sense, right? Like, that would be a silly premise to work off of, because if you have the requisite skills and stuff like that, and you show that you can do it, then why would that matter? Especially when you're someone that already works for the company, and we know your work ethic, and we know why you deserve growth, right? That being said, it's a reality for a lot of places. The reality for us is a little bit different. We hire people based on growth. Whenever I'm in an interview, the biggest question I have for somebody is, why do you want to switch careers? Why do you want to switch jobs? And then the biggest response that I usually get is some sort of career growth. And my thing is, good, because we want people that want to grow their careers, right? So when people start here, and I always say to people in the interview, I would not expect you to want to go door to door forever. Like that would not make sense to me if somebody came in and said, yeah, I want to retire from a door to door position. Now, why doesn't that make sense? There's nothing bad to do with our job, and I think that we're at the risk of making people, feel like we have a problem with our job when we say that. But no, it's the same reality wherever you go, right? If I go get my law degree and I'm, a clerk at a law office, I don't want to be a clerk at a law office forever, right? I want to eventually move up and grow. I want to eventually become a partner at that law office, right? So, everybody has aspirations, and that's the point of that line, is that, we don't expect you to want to stay in an entry-level door-to-door position forever. That would be kind of silly. Honestly, if you did that, then you wouldn't be the right person for the job, right? So the biggest keys to growth, you got to think from a management perspective. I want to give you guys the sort of inside baseball here on the way that I think about things, and I think about preparation for someone to grow. The biggest thing is do they deserve it? Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with how long they've been here for. It's, do they deserve it? Right now, what defines deserving it? Well, obviously, production is important to deserving it. Jeez, I cannot type it all. Production is important to deserving growth, right? Consistency, attitude, atmosphere. Are you a company? Do you have company values? Are you prescribe to the values? And the biggest to me is what are you adding? Or what are you subtracting? And what are you adding or what are you subtracting is important to me, because when we talk about it, it's rough to kind of have this conversation. But one of the things that we've been talking about a lot in management, I think it's important all the time for people to look at their own careers and assess this, is what value am I adding to the organization, to the company? Am I adding enough value? And that's the way that I think people should judge their jobs, right? I mean, you think about it for a second, right? It's like, it's not all about an individual, especially in a production-based job. It's about the value that you're adding, right? So let's say, for example, I move into a management role and I'm working with people, but they're getting no better. I'm calling resumes, but I'm bringing no new employees in. I'm bringing new people in, but they're not sticking with the job, right? Then I'm not adding value at all. All right, I'm actually taking away value because I'm collecting pay, obviously, and my team that could be doing better is doing worse because of me. So or they're doing good in spite of me in some cases. that's not added value. That's a problem. That's a problem for every company, obviously. But when you think about a team right now, let's say I got a team out there and the manager's not working with the employees, or the work that they're doing with the employees is not making effective change. They are not bringing new people in, and they're not making those new people good. Then they are just a detriment to the team. They could be working as hard as they want, but are they adding value? Okay, and so that's one of the biggest things that we look for when it comes to, does this person deserve it? Okay, tenure doesn't matter, only to an extent, right? So experience in the job. Okay, that's important. Tenure doesn't matter, but experience in the job is important. And what does that mean? It doesn't need to be a long time, but I would say somewhere between 4 and 8 months minimum. And I would say that the person has to understand the expectations. If they don't understand the expectations, then it's going to be very difficult for them to understand why they're doing what they're doing and what we expect from them, what we want from them. So if they don't understand the expectations, then it's extremely difficult. I think the other part of it is canvassing experience doesn't dictate management experience. And I think that's obviously obvious, but you can learn on the job, and that's the benefit. But without going through either a training program or having the ability to show that you can manage people, then you're going to canvassing experience doesn't dictate. It might dictate a little bit of sales, in your ability to do sales, but it's not going to dictate your ability to do management, for example. Okay. So you want to find ways to show that you have the experience. And by the way, too, by experience, I don't mean like, oh, you worked management at a previous job. That can help, sure, certainly. It can also hurt. But by experience, I mean you have experience in showing that you can help, showing that you can, give positive advice, keep that positive environment up. That's what matters in going into management. And then the biggest thing is, do you really want it? Now, what does that mean? That's another thing that we look at. So do you really want it? Now, of course, you say, well, yeah, of course I want the job. Why wouldn't I want the job, right? Okay, but do you want the hours? It sometimes can take 55 hours a week until you figure it out. Now, what I mean by that is that it doesn't need to take that long. It doesn't need to take 55 hours a week. It doesn't need to take 40 hours. Well, I guess it would technically need to take 40 hours a week. It doesn't need to take 45 hours a week. It's all about what you do. But until you figure out the job, sure, yeah, there could be weeks where you're spending 55 hours a week on the job. And that goes for anything else too. The thing that this benefits is that, you might go, well, I want to move into sales, or I want to move into your situation in the office here. You're still going to want to at some point move up, I would assume, and I can tell you from experience that all the managers that I know in this job, they're looking for the same thing. You know what I'm saying? They're all looking for the same thing. If they're good at picking people for growth, they're looking for the same thing. I don't play favorites. One of the hardest, here's one of the most difficult things that we can experience, that we can go through in management, is, let's say I pick the wrong person for the job. It's having loyalty to making sure that person gets a good opportunity to show that they can or cannot do it. That's one of the difficult things, because it makes it hard for us to move off of people, right? Let's say, for example, I'm going to use you, for example, folks. Just let's say that you moved into a management role here, okay? And let's say that I said, okay, you've done the work for it. You're getting into that role, okay? You're doing it. I can see that you're trying, but it's not working out. Well, I'm going to give you a certain amount of leverage and leeway, right? But I can only give you so much, right? I mean, at some point, my big thing is, are you screwing up somebody else's job? If I have a manager that's screwing up somebody else's job, that's what makes me angry. So, for example, if I have a manager who's constantly, let's say a manager is not working with his employees, and those employees are failing at the job, you're screwing with their livelihood. There's nothing that pisses me off more than that. That pisses me off. Their kids might not be able to eat because you are messing around, right? And that makes me angry. That's the one thing where I'm like, nope, we're done here. You know what I'm saying? And I would hope that every manager takes that mindset to it. Now I know what this is like because back up in Boston, when I first started, I had a manager that's what he did. That was his thing, you know. Now it didn't bother me much because I was self-motivated. So whenever he would go, hey guys, let's go to the beach instead of work, then I would go, no, just drop me off in my neighborhood. And then he would go do his thing. But there were people on the team that were weaker than me. And even in the beginning, I was the same way where they were like, okay, sounds good. And I remember sitting in a manager's meeting and listening to the director go, you know, look, we're going to have to let go of these, you know, two guys. I was friends with these guys. They were on my team. And I knew they could do the job, but I knew that they weren't getting any training. They weren't getting they weren't getting any positive reinforcement, and that they were being told that it's fine. Oh, it's fine. Yeah. We'll write one lead and then we'll go to the movies, you know, stuff like that. And I remember I'm waiting for the manager to react, to say whatever he's going to say. And he goes, yeah, I agree. We got to let them go. And I'm like, whoa, what, dude? You've been messing around with these guys for months. You know what I'm saying? Smoking weed in the van, stuff like that. What are you talking about? You know? So, you know, finally I came at him about it and whatnot. And we ended up switching the guys' teams and they switched to my teams and they were great. One of them today is managing one of the offices. He would have been gone from the company. You know what I'm saying? But that's the thing, is that there's, from that experience, I remember that like it was yesterday. I mean, those guys have kids now. You know what I'm saying? If their careers were screwed up then, God knows what their lives, what condition their lives would be in now. You can't mess with people's livelihood. You know, that's one of the worst things you can do. But the problem as a manager is that you can make a switch and say, or as a director, or someone managing one of the offices, is you can make a switch and say, okay, this person's now a manager. It's up to that person whether or not they stay in level 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 manager. You know, and if they're insistent on staying in level 1 or 2, then you can't have them there anymore. So the question is, does the person want? Do they want the hours? Do they want the pressure? There's a lot of pressure that comes with growth, and this goes into anything, right? Whether you're switching to what you want to do or you're switching to what somebody else wants to do. When you get in an environment, you get used to an environment, you get used to a certain way of life. Whenever there's a shock to the system, it can negatively or positively affect things for you. Hey, okay, great. Can you please let me know, Brandon? Thank you. And so I'm sorry, this is an interview here. And so that can negatively impact you in the way that you perform. And pressure comes with growth too. So all of a sudden, you know, hey, if I had a bad day canvassing, then it's fine. I just have to worry about myself. Well, now you have 6 canvassers that are all struggling. You know, you let them know. Thank you. 6 canvassers that are all struggling. Well, now what do you do? It's a lot different. A lot different. The expectation is a lot higher, right? And then the big picture is another thing that you have to be able to look at. This is something that a lot of people struggle with because it's not about you, right? Seth, you've heard me say numerous times, you know, and Mo has as well. You know, look, you're not building a team, you're building an department, right? It's your goals change as you grow, and some of these things could negatively impact you, right? You might get more difficult. Let's say, for example, here's a good example. Our goals this year are higher than they were last year. Well, for me, that changes things quite a bit because what ends up happening is it goes from, you know, the goals go from, you know, okay, this is very attainable, right? And I like my pay. I'm fine with it. Well, then the next year, all of a sudden, the goals go up and the pay might go up too with the goals, or it might not, depending on the situation. Either way, I might go, man, I was comfortable where I was at. You know, now I have to do X amount more. Yes, you have to see things big picture. What do I have to do big picture? You know, big picture is we provide a lot of jobs and opportunities for a lot of different people. And so we have to be able to focus on that big picture. Now, let's say, for example, you're growing into something like sales. That picture is not as big. It really is not, because you are working for yourself. And so if you feel like you're not someone that can deal with that big picture, or, you know, with the teamwork environment, sometimes having to sacrifice for the team, putting in the more hours, stuff like that, then maybe that's a better opportunity for you. But the most important thing here is, and I think this is something that everybody struggles with in their career, but it makes you look really, really bad when you struggle with it. So that's why I want to be just blatantly clear with it, is, I'm going to put it in big letters here, patience. A lot of people struggle with patience. And that's something that is so important. And the biggest question always I have for somebody that's struggling with patience is why? Why are you struggling with patience? Usually, why do you think people struggle with patience, folks? That's true. Yeah, a lot of people can feel like they want it now, and that's the reason why. Another reason why, something that I don't think a lot of people are willing to admit, or a lot of people see, is that they feel like they are going to lose it. And the reason for that is because what ends up happening is, let's say I'm a canvasser, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm going for management. My numbers have been good. Okay. And then let's say my numbers start to decline a little bit because of something I'm doing. They want to jump ship. They want to jump into the next opportunity because they feel like they've done what they needed to do and they feel like it's going to get harder to do what they need to do, right? So you see this all the time, right? Like, I got nowhere to jump to. I can't just go like, so if there's a problem, I got to deal with it. But I remember as a team lead, or I remember here's the best example. We had a guy who was supposed to go into, okay, and he really wanted to go into sales. He's at the height of his, put in a couple more months. That's what you got to do. No problem at all. All right, great. You'd only been here for 4 or 5 months. So he puts in like another month. All of a sudden, his numbers start to decline. Now, why do they start to decline? Well, he doesn't want to come in for Saturdays anymore. He feels like he's already attained the sales goal, right? And so I remember having a one-on-one with him about 2 weeks into, maybe a month into this experience there, and his numbers had declined. He's like, well, I just don't understand why I can't go into sales now. And my whole thing is, I'm like, well, this is the exact reason why. You're reacting very poorly under the pressure of growth. You got to be patient. You got to show that you can be patient, and you got to show that you can sustain in an environment like this. So you look at it like, you might go, well, hey, I've earned the job, I've earned sales. And what I would say to that is, you haven't showed that you can keep a sales job. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you can't get over a little bit of adversity, you know what I'm saying, in a canvassing job, then how the hell are you going to keep a sales job? What happens when you all of a sudden have a bad close rate for a month? Are you going to quit? Are you going to think that you should be the general manager? And then what happens if you were to get that spot, which would be ridiculous? But let's just say that you were, then what would be next? Oh, I should own the company because I didn't do well this month. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't, that reaction is irrational, but it happens all of the time to people. And it really lets you see their true colors. So that's the interesting thing. To me, that when you see somebody at their truest is right before they're supposed to grow, you'll see them at their truest. So let's say, for example, we have, well, here's a great example. We had a guy, one of the only person that we've had that's really failed in a sales role that made it through training. He was a great canvasser, did a great job. We had set a date on when he was going to go into sales. Okay, let's just say it was January 15th or whatever. And his numbers immediately declined. So we're talking like 2 weeks before he's supposed to go into sales. And I'm like, look, dude, you're not going to get it if you don't write a good amount of leads. Like, this is the thing, is that it's not over for you. Your job doesn't finish because you have this sales opportunity in front of you. You got to maintain. So he goes out there and he has another bad week, and it's right before he's supposed to go into sales. And I said to him, I'll just call him John Smith. I said, John Smith, I called him on a Saturday. I said, you don't have the amount of leads you need. He's like, yeah, or no, he didn't go out on a Saturday. I called him on a Friday. I said, I was in Massachusetts. I said, you don't have the amount of leads that you need to have. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to probably go out Saturday. If not, then Sunday. And I said, okay, Saturday he doesn't go out, no leads. I said, hey, man, you need 4 more leads to hit your goal, and you're not doing it. And he's like, okay, so I won't be able to go over to sales if I don't get the full leads. I said, no, you won't. Straight up, dude. I've been warning you about this for months. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I'm not being unfair. Go out there and get the leads. So he went out and got the leads on a Sunday. That is the only guy that failed in the sales role. When you get all the other people that have gone over to that department, then you can see our success rate. They didn't act like that. They didn't react that way. The only one other person that reacted that way, we ended up declining him in sales, and it was the greatest. It was. This is during COVID. Seth, you'd remember this. Do you remember this, Seth?
Are we talking about the initials PP?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And it was for the same exact reason. He was supposed to go into sales. Now, Adam Chubb, I'll say his name because he did go over. Adam Chubb had gone over into sales, and this guy was supposed to be the next person over. And let's say it's September. Now, the difference in what they had done, this is during COVID, up until that point, is Adam Chubb called me every single day asking me what I needed, what he could do to help, not what he could do to grow into sales, what he could do to help. You know what I'm saying? And so every single day he called me without fail, every single day. So I'm like, okay, great. Then the other person, they went on vacation for like a month. Just, hey, it's COVID, they're getting paid to do nothing. So instead of doing something like calling leads or, figuring things out like we did, doing training, they just went on vacation, got paid for nothing. Now that's fine. At the time, that was fine. But again, who's going to grow first, right? Obviously the guy who's trying hardest, right? So then they all get back. And this person says, well, why is Chubb moving into sales before me? And I said, well, this is what he's done to move into sales. And he goes, okay, I want to do the same thing. I want to help. Great. So we give him the opportunity. Okay, this will be your date, October 17th, it would have been. And then I start getting complaints about this person and their attitude at events. We're doing events at the time. And I get complaints from everybody. He's just being a whiny brat at events. So finally I pulled him aside and I said, listen, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not moving into sales. Okay. This has been going on for a month now. And I've talked to you about it multiple times. You're not going into sales. And he understood. I was surprised. I let him out that day. It was, he came back the next day. He said, can I talk to you? I thought for sure he was going to quit. And he said, look, I understand you're right. I've been negative. I've been causing problems at events. I know I'm not going to do that anymore. So then he does good for about 2 months, right? We set another date to go into sales. This would be the beginning of January. So he all he needs to do is work, basically. Things go well for a couple of weeks. Then all of a sudden the negativity problems start coming up again. But I still want to get him into sales. But my thing to him was, I said, listen, I need to be able to justify it to the rest of the employees. That's my job. I need to be able to, think about management for a second. What if I move someone into management? Everybody's like, why the hell would that guy get that job? You know what I'm saying? That's not going to look very good. Or into sales, same thing. So we round the corner to January. His birthday is coming up. And so he had the Saturday off, right? Now, what we were doing at the time, and this story's almost over, I promise, we'll get back to this stuff. What we were doing at the time was we were doing events, but filling the rest of our 40 hours with calling leads, right? So Friday, he was set to go to Hershey Park. We had bad weather. It canceled. So he could have went home and called leads. He did not do that. Saturday was his birthday thing. Okay, but that was at night. He could have called any leads all day, right? Sunday, he had an event schedule. He showed up an hour late to it, okay, and worked for about 4 hours. That was it. And then Monday, he comes in all happy, 2:00 in the afternoon, walks in, hasn't done anything. I said, I almost said his name. I said, dude, you have not worked in like 5 days. You just have not worked at all. You're supposed to go into sales in a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever. And you just decide, I'm going to take a vacation. I'm not going to work now. You're not going into sales, man. You got a week. I would work every hour that you can, every hour that you can. And so he goes, okay, I'll hustle hard. He works 40 hours then. 40 hours. Now, again, it's fine. If you're doing that the entire time, fine. But that's your response to you better work more, is working 40 hours. He just didn't move into sales. Now, my thing is that, I could look like a prick like that. I could look like I'm trying to hold somebody back. I don't care. He has jumped from job to job now. And he has been negative in every job that he's had. I've talked to people that have worked with him, people that know him, people that are friendly with him. I am so glad we did not make the decision to move that person still. But that idea of patience, and when you look at all of this list of stuff that we just went through, think about the story I just told you, the stories I just told you, and where they get cut off here when it comes to growth. Okay. So again, the questions, when I'm looking at it, does someone deserve it? Okay. Is there production there? They're not going to be the best, but is there production there? Consistency is very important. Okay. And that's, by the way, that's consistency as a person. Can you be trusted? That's something that I guess also goes with it. I guess I would go with values. Attitude and atmosphere. What kind of atmosphere they create? Their values. They follow company values. Are they adding or subtracting in the job? Okay. Are we just are we just giving them a role just to give them a role? Because that's a problem. Experience in the job, at least 4 to 8 months minimum for management. I'd say 8 to 12 months for sales. Expectations. Are they meeting expectations? Will they meet expectations in the job? And then canvassing experience doesn't exactly dictate management experience, or sales experience for that matter. But there's ways that you can prove that you're right for it by, here's a couple examples, right? And this could go under want it too. I'm going to actually put it in a separate category here. Want it is, are they willing to work the hours in the beginning, especially in management and in sales, 55 hours a week if they need to. The pressure that comes with growth, they're going to have a lot more responsibility, and can they see big picture? Okay. So what are the things that you have to do? The to-dos, we'll call it. Makes sense. Things you have to do, the to-dos. Okay. So the things I would do, now you don't have to do all of these things, but okay, I would average at least, and this is very important, at least 2 leads per day, at least 5 demos per week. Okay. That's very low. That's not something, I mean, it's not, that's a minimum requirement. But if you're doing that and you're showing that you can do that on a consistent basis, then I'm fine with that. All right. Are you working extra hours? How can you convince me that you can work 55 hours a week if you needed to, if you can't work more than 40 in your job, right? And what I mean by that is this is like, look, people have kids, people have lives, things like that. You're not going to have to go into management and work 55 hours a week every single week. Okay. But your job is going to be to grow your team. And some people don't have the ability to do that in 40 hours. Some people do, some people don't. So if you can't do that in 40 hours, then yes, it's going to take you doing more to do it, right? So if you can't work the extra hours now, then why would you be able to do that when you got a higher position? Okay. So that would mean working Saturdays. That would mean, early callbacks. That would mean pitching and training. Okay. All right. And then participate in additional trainings. And then this is important. Read or listen to audiobooks. Again, show that like I've given out probably, I don't know, 60 or 70 copies of the 5 Levels of Leadership since I've been with the company. They should give me a contract to sell the book, to give the book away. But I bet you out of those 55 books or something, probably 5 people have read it through and through. That's probably it, and it's a very important book. That's a way to show that you have the ability to grow and to handle it. Like, it's your training essentially. You're not participating, you're not training. Okay. Seth, do you have anything to add to that? Those lists.
I think you kind of nailed it with consistency too. In not only production, which I think is what a lot of people associate that word with, but also in attitude, demeanor, and general perseverance, grit towards your end goal. That's variability is not an attractive feature in a leader. Nobody wants to have someone that's really volatile and happy one day and then kind of sullen the next and angry the other. So it's not only that kind of consistency in production of every day getting 3 leads, 2 plus 5 demos each week, but it's also, are you somebody that people can look up to? Are you a strong baseline for them to stand on your shoulders, in essence, learn from your experiences and be as good as, if not better than you, from your involvement. And that's always something that leadership kind of transcends all of that stuff. Like, the people who generally want to be better will be better because they work at it. And anything that you genuinely work at, you will improve on. So, yeah, I'd say that's about it. Consistency is a huge, overreaching concept, but it's hugely applicable to the job.
Agreed. Excellent. Agreed. All right, 1 second, dude. Can I use your computer mouse? Can I use your computer mouse?
Yeah.
I don't have my little thing. You did? All right, because the one I picked up is for a MacBook. Hey, Seth, you have a Mac, right?
A Mac?
Yeah.
No, no, I hate
I
Apple.
have a really nice mouse for a MacBook that I can't use because I didn't realize it was just for Mac. It's really nice too.
It's a what?
It's for a MacBook. It's a really nice computer mouse. It's like
Oh,
it's weird. It's like sideways like this, so the clickers are on the side, and it
okay.
are yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah,
Cool, I'll talk to you
I
later.
don't
Okay.
don't have any, but I'll keep my ear out in case someone at the office does. Maybe it's
Yeah,
a
sounds
like an incentive.
sounds good. Yeah, it's nice. I just can't use it. I wish I could, but all right. So I know I agree. I think that sums a lot of this stuff up. And I think people need to have a good like understanding for what's expected from them, right? I mean that's something that in management and in leadership we should give to people is a reasonable expectation of what they need to do to grow. So if you sit down with me, then I should be able to tell you within a a very close margin what you need to do in order to be able to grow, right? Doesn't mean that everything will be perfect all the time. I get best example I can think of is I had Andy Myers and Brad Grenoble. They both wanted to go into sales. They were in team lead roles. So I had said to them, hey, 6 months from now, you can go into there, whatever. We need to build the teams or whatever. Now, in fairness to me too, I think about it now and I go, well, they were the ones that were supposed to prepare their team. So they did to an extent, but I didn't have the right people to grow whenever it was time for them to grow. So I said to them, I said, listen, can I have another month from you guys because I need it to, be able to, and they gave it to me. Now, in retrospect, if I would have said, hey, I need another month, then that's completely reasonable. You know what I'm saying? But I politely asked for it, and luckily they said yes, because if not, then I would have had to say, yeah, no, we're gonna get another month out of you. So, but that to me is reasonable. Like you can't, especially with management, there's only so many jobs, so you got to give us time to be able to create the opportunities, and then it's our job to create the opportunities, and that's where, as a manager, that's where the expectation exists. Meaning that, like, let's say that I have a team lead that's not filling up their team, and with good productive people, and I got other people waiting behind them to grow. Then what I need to do is say, okay, I'm only going to deal with this for another month because I can only have these other people deal with this for another month. You can't get us caught up in our process. You have to be a moving gear. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's important to understand as well. Does that make sense? Okay. Lucas, you have any questions or anything to add to that? Okay, fair enough. All right. So, moving on. So that's that there. We'll probably stop back at that in a couple minutes or whatever, after our little intermission that we're going to have. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about is I want to talk about callbacks. And as far as recorded training goes, we're going to be doing a couple things for this over the next week. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But I just want to go through a couple of key highlights because we've been having some issues with callbacks. So I want to go through some stats that are kind of staggering. We'll take a brief intermission and then we'll come back to it. And I'll go through, what we're going to do regarding callbacks and how we can make an impact on this. And I'm going to go through, what I would do in the immediate to get your callback numbers up there. Okay. So our numbers on callbacks are atrocious. What I mean by that is that when it comes to getting the leads to run, we are really bad at it. We just really are. And I'm going to look back to the beginning of February for our numbers because it's a detriment to us in multiple ways. So the problem that exists, with us setting these leads is that obviously it gives us a false impression of what we can do and what we're going to make. Right. I mean, that's the first big thing is that like if I assume because I set 10 callbacks, I'm going to have, 5 of those go through and one of them does or 0 of them do, then I'm creating a problem for myself, and mentality wise, it's not going to make me want to do callbacks very much. Okay. So just to go through a couple of numbers without giving names, this person talked to 48 people, set 3, 2 of them ran. That's not bad. when it comes to the set rate's not great, but when it comes to them issuing, this person set 26, had 1 run. That's obviously a bad issue rate. Great set rate, 62% set rate, and but bad issue rate, right? And so that's what we'll work on today. This person set 9 and had 3 run. Okay, so better, but not great. Not great. This person set 8 and had 0 run. Okay, so obviously not great. This person set 6 and had 1 run. This person set 7 and had 2 run. This person set 3 and had 0 run. We got 11 and had 3 run. 3 and had 1 run. 1 and had 1 run. I mean, I guess that's, not really calling though. 6 and had 1 run. 1 and had 1 run. And then that's it. All of our guys up there in North, out of all of the callbacks that were called and set, admittedly, there's not been nearly as many. They have called the least amount of leads out of any office so far this year, which is a huge change in behavior. And I think that's something that we need to pay attention to, because that is going to dictate how well we do. Just to give you some examples, I'm going to go through the numbers for Central for amount of calls made, and then West, and then North. 275, 744, 469, 72, 29, 146, 1050, 122, 123, 37, 65, 30, 11, 294. And now we're in West. Okay. Sorry, we were in West at 294, 1,111. Wow, that's 1111. 38, 178, 529, 330, and then we're in North. 36, 17, 50, 37, 4, and that's it. Okay, so it's a huge decrease in the amount. Oh, and 22 in the amount that we're calling. And that's going to cause issues. Seth, can you speak on that? Oh, why is that happening?
Yeah, that's something that we have a handful of people, and they get sorry, just walk through. When they get to calling, we have a lot of traction, and then we have a moment where it'll be less so, and it just needs a kind of reiteration to people as another facet of, hey, this is something that I'm not telling you guys this is mandatory, but there's no room to speak if you're able to dictate your paychecks in such a big way. So we have Renaissance periods, and we've had a number of people before, and this is why I'm gonna have everybody highly encourage them to watch this video, that they have seen a lot of leads set, and like the cancellation rate, the demo rate, these have been not to the same degree that we have canvassing. And that can be, I've had some people say, hey, that's kind of disheartening. I'd like to be able to get some bang for my buck if I'm going to go out there and call early. So this is going to be.
Two things I have to say about that real quick. I don't mean to cut off, but the 2 things I have to say about that real quick before I lose my point is, A, I hope that all these people are clocking in at 12 o'clock every day instead of 11, 10:30, stuff like that, which is something to examine, something I'll have to examine, because if not, that's a problem. And B, what I'll say is that's a terrible attitude to have. I'm going to give up on something because I'm not doing well with it. It's going to speak to character, and it's exactly what I mean when I talk about growth. When it comes to values and when it comes to attitude and stuff like that, that's not the attitude that you want to carry, obviously. So,
absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
All right, cool. All right, we are going to take a brief intermission, and then we're going to get into this because we just had some food show up here. Let's take 10 minutes, then we're going to get on callbacks, and we'll have a clean. We went through the numbers. Now we're going to go through our objectives. Okay. All right, intermission. All right. We're back here. We just text Tony real quick. No. All right, so we are going to be going through callbacks now. Like I mentioned, we went through some of the statistics, and obviously that's something that I think is important for us to go through. We talked about added value, and the biggest thing is if you're, when you look at the three elements to this job for me, and we've talked about this in the past. I think the most important things in this job are that you have a good positive environment in your team. That's one of the things. I think that the environment that you're canvassing into. So I don't mean that weather is like that important, but like I wouldn't want to do this job in Minnesota. I wouldn't want to do this job in Alaska. Would I do it? Sure. Yeah, Maine. I would not want to, but we have a good balanced environment, and then making money obviously too. And so if you have three of those elements, then great. Your team is going to be all stars. They're going to be happy all the time. They're going to be doing extremely well. If you have two of those elements, it's extremely workable. Things will be fine. You'll do well. If you have one of those elements, then you're kind of in a bad place. You know what I'm saying? If all I can do is, and I've talked to people in one-on-ones recently who have said, look, the van environment is great. But between the weather and the, in my performance, I don't know if this is for me. I've talked to people very recently, I'd say, the van environment might be great, but we're not getting the training, or we're not, doing the role play as much as we need to, or whatever. And I'm not making money. I don't mind the weather. I don't know if I could do this. Those are things that are not good, for our job. We need to, focus on those things. Now, where do callbacks fit there? Well, obviously callbacks are one of the ways that you can control your means of income. If you're not doing well in callbacks, because you're not setting callbacks, you shouldn't just stop calling callbacks. You should seek out training, practice, and then go back to it. It's just like with our job. If we were not doing well with canvassing, we wouldn't just stop canvassing. You know what I'm saying? We wouldn't just be like, oh, yeah, no, we're just going to not, we'll just hang out here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's, stupid. So you don't want to have that same response with callbacks either. We'd make ourselves better. We focus on training. We pay attention to the things that are going to make us better. If we have a low lead quality on callbacks, the solution is not to get leads, right? If I have a demo rate problem in the department, I'm not going to go, okay, well, let's just not get leads anymore. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't make much sense, right? No, I mean, on the contrary, I would say, hey, I encourage you to go get more. Fox and I were just going through this the other day. We're like, all right, set up, he was having some trouble getting the callbacks run. Set up these callbacks and let's follow them from start to finish and see what the result is, what happens with them. If you don't have those results, if you're not setting the leads, then there's nothing to follow. There's nothing to check out. There's nothing to improve on. So what I'd say to anybody that's sitting there going, well, I doubt my ability to do callbacks and they're not running and stuff like that is, if you're watching this, then there's steps that you can take to do well. And we're going to do some of those steps over the next week. So we're going to go over some stuff right now, but more importantly, during the week on Tuesday, and on probably Wednesday or Thursday as well, we're going to have one of the call center reps come in and talk about lead quality, and how to generate that from your appointments. Real quick, hey, could you go just when you're done and go ask Spencer how much it was so I can cash up? Thank you. I forgot to ask. All right. So let's talk first about the setting of callbacks. I mean, the volume of calls is important. You can't, it's just like with canvassing. It's not a numbers game, but calling a lot of people, calling for an extended period of time is definitely going to help your increase your chances of, if you're calling 15 people a day, then there's a good chance that you never set a callback. You know what I'm saying? You got to sit down and call sometimes 100 people, get the practice in and get to it, right? Getting to the point, focusing on need, recommitting the customer. Those are all important things. So you have to go through need again. And this is a lead quality and a lead amount thing. Well, how much was it? Okay. One second. Just don't want to forget to cash out. don't know if it's his or not. All right. So getting to the point, recommitting the customer on need is very important. The way that need works. And all right, sorry about that. My nose is running. If you pull up the lead, right, and you're reviewing the lead, I wouldn't spend a ton of time sitting there looking at things like lead notes and stuff. You don't got to spend minutes looking at it, but as you're calling the customer, look at the yellow box, see what you see down there. Check things like when's the last time it was called, when was it set, or when did we talk to the person, especially if it's canvassing callback, and what was the last result on the appointment. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a baseline to go off of. So if that became a callback 6 months ago, and there's no notes, I'm going to assume that the person just said, no, I'm not going to do this right now. If there's no notes, I'm going to look at the lead notes. Now, if there's no window problems, then you can dig for window problems. It's not going to be as easy to set that person. But the way that you call that person, the way that you communicate needs them, even though that's most important, you're not going to not call the person because you don't see that. So when I call that person and I introduce myself, the reason why I'm talking to them, the reason why I'm calling them is because one of my associates, they stopped by, 6 months ago. They stopped by a few months back, and we're back in the area. Give yourself a reason to be on the phone with them right now, right? Just like when we go to an Anderson house and we say, hey, we're here because you have Anderson windows, essentially, right? Give them a reason for you to be calling, all right? Now, when you're going through the need, it's just like with our script. You don't have to confirm all the need in the beginning by using it to set the appointment, but utilize the couple basic key things. If you know that the windows are 15-year-old vinyl windows and you don't see any other notes besides them, then make it seem like you do. Mr. Jones, you have I know in the notes here it says you have 15 windows that are 15 years old. It looks like they're all plastic vinyl windows. Now those got to be pretty rough, and get into the conversation like that. Yeah, actually, it's funny that you say that, Mr. Jones, because we were at your neighbor's house recently. I don't know if they have the same windows as you, but it looks like they're about the same age, and they were having X and Y problems. So we'll get somebody out there and transition. You don't got to lock them 100% into the problems right there, but transition is strong because, again, the biggest thing is that customer can just hang up the phone. So from a setting perspective, you have to have a strong transition to schedule. If you don't, then you're not going to set enough people. If you're like, hey, do you want a quote from us? Then it's going to be the same result as if you did that with canvassing. You're going to set 1 out of 1,000,000 people by chance. It's not going to do anything for you. Get right to schedule. Okay. Right to schedule. We're going to have somebody out in the area. What time of day do you get out of work? What time do you get out of work? What are you home more, mornings or afternoons? Right. And questions like that, that are very specific. You don't want to just go, well, we have availability this week. What's a good time for you? Because again, this is why you're seeing cancellations. You're going to see a lot of cancellations when you're opening up schedule like that, because the person's going to pick a week out. If the person is going to pick a week out, if they are beyond 5 days, it's not even worth sending the person, quite frankly. I mean, when you look at it, you're going to have an almost 100% cancellation rate. You got to get them it's the same thing as we're setting up interviews. When we're setting up interviews, we say, look, we can see you over the next 48 hours, right? Essentially, we don't even say that, but we just give them times over the next 40 hours. Now, leads are a little bit different. I wouldn't say 48 hours is the maximum that you can see them with, but it's the same premise. If we set an interview up for 3 days up, 4 days out, 5 days out, other things come up that are more important. They forget about the appointment. They don't answer the phone to confirm, and then they're just done. And that's it. We don't want that end result. Being that we want the people to go through, we want to make sure that we control the schedule. And this is a big thing, is that you have to maintain control, because you're on the phone even more than at the door. Inherently, when you're at their door, you have a little bit more control because you're there. They feel more committed to not slamming the door in your face. Not everybody, obviously, but a good amount of people. And so you have to maintain control of the schedule. And then you use the same process. What are you doing? Oh. Picked out of the trash.
Yeah. Nothing, it's clean. Nothing else is in there.
That was weird. Andrew's eating out of the trash. Sorry, that distracted me. No, it's okay. It's not your fault. I couldn't. I just saw you digging in there, and I'm like, what the hell is he gonna do with that? That's weird. Looks good. The whole thing, not the trash thing, the food. Yeah, that's weird. Anyways, so when you're maintaining control, you got to make sure. And here's the thing, and this might sound silly to some people, but a lot of people aren't reconfirming anything. They're not reconfirming the commitments. They're getting off the phone as soon as possible. If the customer is trying to push you off the phone, why do you think that is? Because they don't want the appointment, and they're going, yeah, sounds good, yep, all right, a week from tomorrow, that's fine, right? That's not an appointment, okay? So you have to recommit. I don't even know how I spelled recommit that right. That's fine. Recommit the commitments. Okay. You have to recommit the commitments. And what do I mean by that? I mean, obviously the 90 minutes, all owners. And here's the thing. Not all owners are going to be in the notes. When you think about how a callback is set, a lot of times it's set with one person. It's there. We haven't even talked a lot of times about both people being there yet. And so a lot of times there's just one person in the notes, even though there might be 4 people that own the house. You got to reconfirm that. And that should be done the exact same way as it's done at the door. Mr. Jones, I just want to remind you, Mr. Jones, Brandon might have went through this week at the door, but I just want to make sure that I remind you that we do ask that you set aside at least 90 minutes, whether we need it or not. Is that fair enough? Okay, great. And we'll just to discuss the project, we are going to need to meet with all the owners of the property. That could be your spouse, or family member, or significant other. Now, I had a Judy Smith here. Is that your spouse? You could ask it that way. And if they say no, or if whatever they say, okay, are there any other owners there? Are there any other owners of the property live there now? Okay. Or are there any other people, knowing that we need all owners of the property there for the appointment, are there any other people that would need to be involved in this decision? Okay. That's fine. Make sure you commit the second party first. Commit the second party first and ask about any third party. Okay. Same thing with the phone numbers. Get more phone numbers. You can't just have what's in the notes. It's not going to do it. It's not going to suffice. You have to get more phone numbers. Okay. And by the way, too, and an email address. Okay. So if the person has one phone number there, they have 2 phone numbers there. Go for a second and third phone number. Tell them that you need a second phone number. I need a second phone number. Some of these callbacks have been called for 2 years every week, and nobody's answered the phone. So if you get them on the phone, understand that now they got to get confirmed. Okay. Now they got to get confirmed. And that's a whole nother animal. Okay. And we see a lot of most of these dying in that confirmation process. Well, that's the reason why, because they're not answering the phone. Same thing. Don't tell them we're going to call to confirm the appointment the day before. None of the BS. None of the BS. Okay. Then recommit the problems. Make sure they are all there. Okay. So when you get done with your part and you're going through your kind of warm down, like before you finish scheduling the appointment. Okay, and I just want to make sure that I'm thorough in my information, Mrs. Jones. I have down here that your windows are drafty, but I know they are 20-year-old vinyl windows. There's going to be other problems there. Most of your neighbors have said that they're experiencing warping in their windows. How many windows do you have like that? A lot of this can be done in yes or no fashion too, because you've already committed the appointment. And so it's just about getting as much information as possible on that sheet. And keep in mind too that there are different things that can help. If that customer is iffy on it, I don't know if I want to commit to this. I don't know if I can commit to, buying windows right now, whatever. You're going to do your rebuttals, but keep in mind too, you can bring the size of that job down too, focus the job more. So, you can say to that customer, well, I'll tell you what, Mrs. Jones, you have 20 windows here. Which ones are concerning you most? I'm guessing like the front of the home, right? something like that, because you're already in setting mode. You're already in setting mode, so that's fine to go through, but then put that in the notes. Hey, we're going to come out to look at the 3 front windows. Those are the biggest concerns, right? How thorough you are is important. There's one good thing to being on the phone for a long time, even though it can frustrate us from a canvassing perspective. You're on the phone for a long time. The appointment quality is probably going to be decent because the person is putting up with that call. Okay, they're putting up with that call. All right. Explain again why and what we are doing. Same thing we do when we're having a problem with canvassing, with getting appointments to go through. Hey, and Mrs. Jones, before I go, I just want to remind you of one thing. When we come out, it's no obligation or cost to you whatsoever. It's completely free. It's a free quote. It's good for an entire year. You don't have to do anything at all with the windows. And again, it's no obligation. And before we go, I'm going to put in the notes here because you've been so kind to me today. I really appreciate it. We're going to give you a $500 gift card towards your windows. So then that way you can get started on a project whenever you'd like. Okay. Just make sure that you let the person know when they come out, the foreman know when they come out, that we put that in the notes for you. Right? And then put it in the notes. Gave $500 gift card over the phone. Okay. That's fine to do. Urgency is key. And that has to do with, window problems. The why now. Which again is like the why are we coming out right now? Because we're already in the neighborhood, because it's just stopping down the street, no big deal for us. This is making it easier for us. We're going to make it easier for you. Okay. And then the promotions. We don't set promotions are always about quality. We still have very low interest rates, Mrs. Jones. We're one of the only companies out there that you can find that will offer you no money down, no interest, and no payments for 1 full year. That's going over. That's very, very important with the customer, making them feel comfortable with that. Okay. What's up? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we don't do 2 right now. Does it? I thought they said 2 was not coming back. Well, and definitely push that, because I don't think that's going to come back for a while. So that would be that'd be something great then to go over with leads and with callbacks right now, because it's March. This is not coming back. This is the only time you're going to be able to take advantage of this in the foreseeable future. Because people understand the economy, and the people that we're talking to, they're all adults. A lot of them average age is like 55 years old or something like that. So they see the economy going the way it's going. So to be able to say to somebody, look, you see the way the economy is going. We're not going to be doing no money down interest on payments for 2 full years for very long. This is important to get the quote now, at least get the information in your hands now, and really, really push that. Okay. All right. So what kind of questions do you guys have? If any? All right. So the biggest thing is making this palatable for the customer, right? Volume of calls is very important. Set rate's very important. Not giving up is very important. If you sound defeated, understand too, the one thing I'll say that is extremely important beyond this stuff is people can see you over. Okay. Andrew's probably freaking out over there in the bathroom right now because I said that. You all right, Andrew? Government's watching.
Yeah.
I said that people can see you over the phone. Then I said, no, I don't mean some weird government conspiracy. Andrew's probably freaking out there right now. But people can see your attitude through your words. If you're speaking and you're like, yeah, and you're defeated, then they're going to be able to tell that. I mean, you guys have been on the phone with confirmers and call center reps that sound miserable as shit, and it over the phone. So the energy that you give off is extremely important to make these things run. Remember, the customer and appointment are better when they feel loyalty to you. Okay. You're going to have a much easier time if the customer feels loyalty to you. Okay. So set goals for yourself, guys. That's a big thing. You should be averaging, if you're someone that wants to grow, then you should probably be averaging an extra demo per week off of callbacks. And that will change your pay significantly. To do a demo per week off callbacks, just think about it for a second. If you're doing a decent job, not a great job with callbacks, and let's say that you're getting 1 out of 2 to run, which is a 50% cancellation rate. So you need to set, let's say, 2 leads in order to hit that. You probably have to call 100 people, maybe less. And you know, that's the thing is if you do a standard 100 or two leads. So if you said to yourself, hey, listen, I'm going to call every week until I get to 2 leads. Okay. Get guaranteed minimum of 100 calls, then you'll be setting up your week very nice, because what you're going to do is you're going to go, okay, well, I'm at 100 calls, but I only got 1 lead. I'm going to keep calling. Or you're going to go, well, I got 2 leads. I'm going to call till I'm at least 100 calls. Okay. That's what I would do. All right. You're going to have weeks of 2 or 3 demos if you're doing that, but always 1. So for that, you know, you think about it like this. Okay. If I am calling for, let's say, 2 hours a week, okay, that I'm getting paid my hourly pay, I mean, it's going to get me closer to it's going to get me closer to overtime. So I'm going to basically be in overtime if I work any additional shift or anything like that because of the extra 2 hours there. Okay. Plus, let's say that I have 1 demo go through, and let's just say that I'm doing average and it gets me from 6 to 7 demos. Okay. Then that's going to be an increase of, hold on 1 second. It's going to be about $140 additional, okay, on top of the base pay. So you're talking about, if you just did $168 in additional pay for 2 hours worth of work, okay, tops. All right, so just consider that if you're doing this the right way. And then you'll have your weeks where it puts you up 2-3 demos, and you're going to be going from, you know, $455 in commission to $850 in commission, you know, just from that. Okay. All right. Any questions at all about any of these things? No. Pretty basic stuff, right? All right. So just to kind of just go over the list here real quick, callbacks, volume of calls is important. The more people you call, the more opportunity you're going to give yourself. Getting to the point is important. You don't got to like make a bunch of conversation or anything like that, but you got to get to the need. You have to go over the need, and you have to recommit the customer through the need in various other ways that we'll cover. Strong transition to schedule. You can't be weak. You can't be like, hey, what time works best for you? You know, you gotta confine the person to a schedule. You know, what time of day is typically best for you, morning or afternoon? Afternoon. Okay, great. We have tomorrow available at 2 p.m. or we can see it even on you know, on Monday at 1 or whatever, Tuesday at 1 p.m., whatever the case would be, right? And so go for that. Then maintain control even more than when you're at the door. So rebuttal and go right back to script. Okay. Make sure that you maintain control. Give yourself a reason to be there. Recommit all the commitments. So 90 minutes, both homeowners being there. Need. Not all owners are going to be in the notes. So you have to make sure that you don't go based on just the notes. Get more phone numbers. You need at least 2 phone numbers. Go for the phone numbers and the email addresses. Window problems, make sure that all of them are there. Cover every problem with the customer. Make sure that they understand before you leave the call exactly why we're coming out. Explain why and what we are doing. So again, give yourself a reason to be there. We're finishing up a job for your neighbor right down the street. This is a no obligation free price quote. That's why we're here. We're here because this is easier for us, and therefore we're going to make it easier and cheaper for you. Urgency is key. Window problems, the why, the now, the promotions. Use all of that in your last impression right before you leave the call. People can see you over the phone. So your attitude is everything. Or like, I don't feel good right now. If you were on the phone with me, you could tell that something was not right, even though you're not seeing me. You know, that I'm exhausted. I don't feel good, whatever. You can tell that. Customer and appointment are better when they feel loyal to you. Okay. Of course, they got to have loyalty to the company, loyalty to the product, but when they feel like they can't cancel on you, it's going to be a better lead. Okay. All right. Any other notes? Okay. All right. Thank you guys very much. Let me know if you have any questions. If not, I will talk to you soon. This video will be up on YouTube.